Hey everyone, I'm just going to put in my earbuds because I think it's easier to hear. I think the sound's better. How's everyone? How's it going? Oh shit, sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. But I did because I almost pushed end the live when I meant to put in my earbuds. How's everyone doing? Happy Tuesday today. I know it's been a bit since I've been on live, and I wanted to come on and check in with everyone. And today I wanted to talk to you about the effects of trauma, because that's one of the large pieces of content that we're going to be looking at in my year-long mentorship coming up in January 2022. And so I wanted to come on and share with you exactly what we're going to be looking at and why, and how it might benefit you in your life and the things that you're up to. And so I think things always are clearer when you give real life examples. And so today I wanted to share with you an example of what is trauma, how does it affect your now moment, and why is it there, and how do we deal with it. So today I won't go into too much about how we deal with it specifically, other than bringing our awareness to it. That's like the number one first step that's important to dealing with it. So this shows up in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people, because all people are different, having different experiences. So I'll use an example from my life recently. As an empath, I'm super sensitive to other people's energy. And when I was younger, I didn't know that. I thought I was responsible for other people's energy. So that made me do a lot of fancy footwork trying to address other people's uncomfortable or upsetting emotions. So I want to talk to you into regards to the idea of steamrolling, which I had the experience of going through this week. And so steamrolling is when you're in a connection or a relationship, and one person wants one thing and another person may not want that, or they want something else. And instead of negotiating it or talking about it, there's usually one member that will just steamroll you, right? And or perhaps pretend like they don't hear what you're saying, or they don't understand what you're saying, and they might truly not, because they're not present. Usually, my experience is that person is in trauma. They're not conscious because they're being triggered. So, and it's around desire, like wanting something and being afraid that you're not going to get it. And it's so confronting to the ego that a lot of this gets pushed underneath, hence the steamrolling. So, for example, as a child, I've known this, but I didn't realize the depth of it until I had an experience this week that triggered that trauma. And really what trauma is unprocessed emotions, challenges that we didn't have the skills or ability to process as children. And so because they feel uncomfortable, the ego's defense mechanism is to push it away. But when it pushes it away, it's still in our consciousness, it's still in our space. It just gets pushed into the unconscious mind, or the subconscious mind. And it doesn't go away. So it's there vibrating, and it will continue to vibrate until it is cleared out. So a lot of people ask me what I do as an integrative awareness coach. And really, it's addressing this space of consciousness. And it's this invisible space that affects our material, practical lives. And so sometimes there's a disconnect for people because they don't see, or they don't quite, the mind, the ego doesn't quite understand that all of our experience is largely shaped by the invisible experience of our emotions, our unconscious mind, all the things that have been cluttering up our space, and our energy. And until that energy is moved or addressed or cleaned out from our space, then it keeps attracting like energy, because that's just the way energy works. So this week I had an experience of, somebody saying, I want this. And I said, well, I said what I needed to do, very, very, very kindly, very subtly, because I was trained to take care of other people's emotions almost more often than my own. And so it became such a natural reaction that I didn't really even realize the extent of, hey, how's it going? If you stop by, say hi. I didn't realize the extent of this steamrolling that I experienced in my life, mainly through the masculine energy in my family. And it just became normal. Like I didn't have the ability to even recognize it until this point in my life. And so it just became the way the world is, even though it's really not that way. It's just that when you're in relationship, when you say something or you tell somebody how you feel and they ignore it and they continue on with their agenda or their objective, that can send a message to especially young children that, who you are, what you think, what you want is not important. And because children cannot differentiate between self and other, like there just is everything at the same time, it's different sense of time, that I personally must not be important or seen or heard. And that is a direct reflection of, who I am and my value. And so this week I attracted that opportunity, that experience to come into my life. So I could see that stuck energy that I'm still holding on to, mostly because it was so painful and so hard to accept, especially my ego's story about that energy, that who would want to look at that? Who wants to feel that? But the truth is underneath it all, right? The truth is that it has nothing to do with a steamrolling, right? It has nothing to do with a person's a person's worth or value. It has to do with egos. And usually traumatized egos that are afraid that they're not going to get what they want. And so, for example, with my father, he had his own trauma of being afraid that he wasn't going to get what he wanted, which for him, living in the construction that he created from being a small child, that he would not be important, that he would not be of value. And the ego can't stand that, right? It can't be with that. It's too painful. So I didn't know any of this at the time, right? When I was getting schooled and I was getting conditioned into this way of interacting. And so I was participating unconsciously. And now as an adult, I have the skills, the capacity, the ability to look back and to rewrite it, to re-see it, to heal it, for both myself and my father. So when they say trauma is generational, intergenerational, it is, because I ended up carrying his pain. His pain became my pain. And you imagine that this happens on so many levels subtly, yet it colors all of our filters of perception, how we see the world, how we see ourselves, what we think is possible, what we see is possible for ourselves. So in this year-long mentorship that I have mentioned to you maybe a couple times already, we're going to be looking at how trauma has shaped our lives, the level of freedom that we have, and how we can consciously approach trauma in our everyday interactions. So I had the opportunity to, in this example I shared with you this week, I had the example to acknowledge, like, oh, that feels really bad, you know, when somebody else wants something and you say, look, I'm not interested in that, or I don't want that, or how about this? And because they can't be with it, they steamroll you, right? And and then I had the opportunity to look at all the times in my life where I didn't stand up for myself. I allowed that to happen because of my conditioning. And then that creates a lack of self-trust, a lack of self-respect, a lack of self-confidence and self-esteem. And so these things are deeply related. And when I saw that, I was able to acknowledge, like, oh, I just threw myself under the bus because I allowed that to happen. I wasn't being accountable to myself. And what I have learned in my life, one of the biggest lessons is the most important relationship we have is to ourselves, to be accountable to ourselves. Because when we are accountable to ourselves, we hold other people accountable to be more conscious, to be more aware, to heal their pain, to heal their trauma, to heal their illusions of self that aren't actually based on truth, but were childhood programs that were put in place that aren't based on reality at all. And so really what this mentorship program is about is bringing people into present time, normalizing it, making it doable and acceptable, and that this is actually the norm for healthy being, and that a lot of us, at no fault of our own, inherited very unhealthy patterns for relating not only to ourselves, but by default others, that cause people a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. And so one of my life missions, my vision, is to have a world where each person is able to foster a relationship of well-being, the being, a well of being for themselves. That starts internally, it starts on the inside. And if you don't have that, right, everything else is a reflection of that discord or that disconnection or that misalignment. And so that's just one little piece that we're going to be looking at. So if you're interested in finding out more about it, I'm going to just put the link. I'll put the link after this live. You can check out the registration information and what more we're going to be covering. But I hope to, I know I've been a little inconsistent about showing up, consistently every week and doing lives and sharing information and content with you on healing live. Although I do share my weekly blog almost every week. I took last week off because I was visiting my family out of town. But I hope to be, my vision for this new year coming up is to be consistently present here on the Mind Heart Space at least once a week. And so if you have anything that you're wanting to, work on, or any topics that you would like more insight on, just drop it in the comment box. If you stop by, whether it's, on the replay or not, just give me a thumbs up. Let me know you were here. It really helps other people see this and get this information more available to a wider audience. All right. Thank you for stopping by. And until next time, please remember what a valuable treasure you are. Bye for now.